All right, everybody. Got a couple of minutes till we get up going. Give me a minute to get everything set up. Everybody, grab your cold beverages while we're getting ready here. Hope everybody's having a good Friday night. If you're watching this, you're probably off work, so it's already a good Friday night for sure. All right, there we go. You know, you think once they put the internet on computers, this thing would be a lot easier to get going, but still takes some technology. All right, we're up and going now. Perfect. I hope everybody's doing good. All right, a couple more minutes. We'll let people start coming on, but let's start off with a drink. Of course, that's what this is all about. The infinity bottle. If you've been keeping up with my infinity bottle videos, this is my infinity bottle. For those of you that don't know what an infinity bottle is, basically it's whatever your favorite spirit is. We'll go, for this example, the bourbon world, and let's say you have a bottle of Knob Creek that you knock down about halfway, and then you pick up a bottle of Maker's Mark. You would top off the Knob Creek with Maker's, and now you have a Knob Creek Maker's blend. And then you drink that down a little bit, add that bottle of Woodford, and you just kind of keep adding a different, spirit, whatever the spirit of choice that you're working with. Rum, tequila, you can even do with those. It's generally a whiskey thing. This particular bottle is what I call a North American blend. It's Canadian and various American whiskeys, not just bourbons, whatever. I've got Jack, Jim Beam, Evan Williams, Seagram 7, Crown, I think Wild Turkey. So I got a nice hodgepodge going on there. So like I said, let's have a drink. Get the evening started right. Can everybody hear me? Please type in the chat if you can hear me. I want to make sure. Scotch brandy rum bottle. Wow, that's interesting. I like where your head's at, 30 rounds. Toast to you. Thanks for coming on board. Three cats, good to see you. This is real fun. I've tried this at various points, and it's real good. In what I found with my infinity bottle, and what I've read about other infinity bottles, is that you kind of take out any extreme unique flavors. Let's say we're throw in a high rye bourbon like Jim Beam. If you drink Jim Beam, you notice the rye, but once you put it in this blend, you kind of take that out. So you just got a nice, smooth drinking whiskey that has a little bit of everything, but nothing extreme, nothing that kind of sticks out. What am I drinking? Three cat friend. This is my infinity bottle, basically my personal blend of all different kind of whiskeys, and that's what I'm enjoying here today. Now we got some folks here real quick. Y'all said that y'all can hear me just fine. I promise you guys, one of the comments I get regularly on the channel is the audio. I am trying to work on this. So let me tell you, I shoot on my iPhone. It's just so much easier to work with. I use iMovie, just easy. So that kind of limits me on the microphones. Now for a long time I just used the microphone on the phone. Then I ponied up and got me one of these little mini mics. And it actually helps a little bit, but yours truly was a dumbass and got it wet. And so, it doesn't work quite as well, even though you can hear it a little bit. So I decided to pony up and get me one of these real nice Rode microphones. They're what a lot of big bloggers everybody uses. And I've had that for about a year, but it's been kind of acting funny on me lately. and so I don't get the sound quality. So then I picked up these little lavalier mics that you can connect. Been trying it out, nothing's working for some reason. Finally, I got one of these little mini lavalier mics that you clip on. Hopefully this is the solution. I've been having problems charging it. The reason I bring this up is I'm trying to improve that audio, because I get it. When I edit it over here, I'm like, man, that for some reason sounds off, and I just haven't been figuring it out, but we are working on it for sure. I wanted to let everybody know that. Early Times Bottle and Bond, I have not tried that, but I wanted to get into it. Actually, research I've done, people will poo-poo, brands like Early Times, Evan Williams, stuff like that. Old Granddad's another one. But their bottle and bonds for the dollar are really tough to beat. Evan Williams bottle and bond is like 17, 18. On Madeira would be nice. You are going to appreciate what's coming up in a little bit. Brian, I will tell you that you're going to appreciate what's coming up in a little bit. Anyway, talking about bottle and bonds. Some of the were called value brands or cheap brands like that. Their bottle and bonds are excellent buys for the dollar, really are. And like I said, Evan Williams, Old Granddad for sure. And I bet that Early Times turns out really nice again for your dollar. All right, got some more folks coming on. Ergot beer. I don't know if I've heard of that. I'll definitely have to research that. So I got the old pen handy. Ergot beer. I'm gonna write that down. Oh, gee. All right. All right, guys. So let's get going. Anybody? I kind of asked this AMA live stream. We can talk about whatever you want, but if you have any questions about home brewing, some of the videos I've done, one of the things is, and you guys know I love chatting to you in the comments, but some of the questions are a little tough to give you in a 1 or 2 sentence answer or even a short paragraph. So if you have any more if you tried a couple of my either beer recipes, wine recipes, what have you, and want to get a little more in depth on that, feel free to ask. The Gatorade bottle guy. Jay, I'm drawing a blank for some reason. The Gatorade. I knew a Gatorade bottle guy in college, but it was a totally different story there. If you can remind me what you had going on, I will definitely try all bottle and bond bourbons. Evan Williams, exactly. The wine got me blitzed. Well, I guess I did my job there. What's everybody drinking tonight? If you're having a drink, let everybody else know what you're drinking. I always love to hear that. Like I said, I got something special a little bit, but I wanted to start off with that Infinity bottle. Real quick, guys. Like I said, while more people, I made wine from grape juice and said it was like a pint of. Okay, yes, I remember that. Yeah, it will definitely hit you hard. That wine. But in fermented beverages, especially the experiments I do, you're at best going to get around 15% or 30 proof. Is about as high as you're going to get. Now, if you want to get a little higher, check out my video on Applejack. It uses something called freeze distillation. Basically, you'll freeze your apple cider or whatever kind of wine, thaw it out, and the water thaws out, the water will thaw out before the alcohol, the alcohol comes off and you'll leave the ice, thus more alcohol. Now, you won't get insanely high like that, but you can get it stronger. No cap, that's strong. That is the funny thing, doing some of these homebrew experiments that I do, you'll make a generic beer or wine or whatever, and it will hit you harder than the stuff I got in my Infinity bottle. I have a video where I made homemade malt liquor, basically a kind of generic lager with adjuncts or additional sugars. And I remember that, and I think the ABV, according to my hydrometer, is only 7-8%. But I remember one night drinking 3 or 4 bottles of that and just melting in the couch. I was just an absolute puddle. it's funny how the fermented beverages can really sneak up on you as much, if not more, than straight spirit. How can you manage your alcohol content? All right, so there's two types of hydrometers. I use something called hydrometers. There's a spirit hydrometer and a beer wine hydrometer because of the different specific gravities of the liquids, what have you. For home brewing, winemaking, beer, you take a specific gravity. Basically, it measures the density of the liquid. And when yeast produces alcohol, it's a less dense liquid, so that density drops, and you measure the difference. Like before you add your yeast, and then after, when it's ready to bottle, you can tell the difference. And there's a formula for it. But most of your hydrometers have a reading. You could go online. There's all kinds of ABV calculators. And when you get real technical home brewing, you actually also want to know the temperature, because that affects the hydrometer reading. Just a percentage or two, like something maybe 7.2 instead of 7.0 or something like that. But you use a hydrometer. There's also something winemakers use that gets used in the brewing industry too. It's called a refractometer. I've never used one. Basically, you put a little, it's those things you kind of see people kind of eye. You put a little sample through a glass, you look through it. It measures Brix, which is their kind of measurement for wine, and then in the beer business, generally people use specific gravity. But they're both measures of the same thing, the density of the liquid, and you're wanting to see that difference before and after fermentation. So that's kind of how alcohol works out. What else we got here? Pumpkin ales. I'm not a big pumpkin guy. But I went to the Great American Beer Festival a few years ago, and there's a brewery in South Bend, Indiana. I don't remember the name of it. It's near the college, it's near Notre Dame or whatever. Their pumpkin ale, to die for. I wish I had more than that, but it was at the Great American Beer Fest. And I'm on Heineken and White Claw from Jade. Ain't no law when you're drinking the claw. I love it. But yeah, pumpkin beers. I have several friends that really like pumpkin beers, and to me, it's tough to execute a good pumpkin beer. Too little or too much pumpkin. Too much pumpkin, to me, can easily ruin a beer, so that balance is kind of tough. Blue Point Mother Pumpkin Ale. I like, I think it's Wasatch up in Utah that does 2 or 3 pumpkin beers. That's pretty good. And if I remember right, also, I believe Elysian up in Seattle does good pumpkin beers. All right, real quick, I'll give you guys a little Vegas update. While we're talking about this, I'll keep my eyes on the question, but I'll give you a quick little Vegas update if any of you guys are planning on coming out anytime or what have you. A few things going on in the city right now. One of the big things going on, especially if you're coming out here, is the Culinary Union, which is the union for pretty much all your bartenders, cocktail waitresses, servers, restaurant employees, also, more importantly, your maids, a lot of your valets. Those are in the Culinary Union. Actually, bartenders are separate. I used to be a member of Local 165. It's underneath the big Culinary Union 226. Pretty much most of the strip is under union contracts. Venetian and a couple others aren't union hotels, but most of them are. All your MGM, Caesars, Properties, Winds, what have you. They have voted on a strike. Now, they're not actually on strike, but they voted to allow a strike. And most likely that will, I think they're calling the date around when we have the big F1 race or Formula One race, which I want to get out of town for. I don't want to be in town, because it is a disaster what they're doing. But anyway, that's the strike date. It's, kind of typical issues. We want more money. The casinos are trying to say we're going broke, even though, God, that's a lot. I don't know how they keep making money, because the casinos just aren't the same. But anyway, that's a potential issue coming up. Most likely they're going to settle. The union contract comes up every 5 years. And I think last time, 10 years ago, when I was, still working on the strip, still in the union, we had a strike vote. It never came out. Is my tolerance really high? I'll put it to you this way. Not so much anymore. I'm an older guy. I qualify for an AARP card, so I'm not as young as I used to be. But I like to tell people, at one time I was not the Michael Jordan of drinking, but I damn sure was Larry Bird. I'll just leave it at that. Uh, you don't get a body like this by folding laundry. I'll just say that. So anyway, Culinary Union, if you're planning to come out next month or two, keep an eye out for that situation, because God forbid you come out here and you can't get a drink or whatever. How old am I? Like I said, I qualify for AARP. I'm in my 50s, early 50s. I'll just leave it at that. A proper young lad does not like to talk about his age. Next, coming up, if you've ever been out to Vegas, across from the Wynn, something called the Fashion Show Mall. It's just the generic mall on the Strip or whatever. They do have a ton of nice little restaurants and a decent little mall. Well, supposedly the parent company or whatever, I think the company's called Howard Hughes Inc. or whatever, but it's the same company behind that is Trump, a Trump Tower. Now, Trump does not own that tower, but it was an old Trump Tower. And originally the concept was he was going to build a second tower and have a casino. Oddly enough, Trump couldn't get a gaming license in town at the time. This was years ago. This was like 20-something years ago. Steve Wynn blocked that. Him and Wynn bumped heads. Now I guess they're best friends or whatever, but at the time. And so there was a plan to have some kind of casino in that part of the Strip. Well, apparently now they're trying to come back and talk about putting a casino, basically I think on top of the mall there. So that's something potential. I don't know that we need another one, but apparently we do need more casinos. Speaking of which, Fontainebleau. It basically it is just north of where the old Riviera was, across the street from Circus Circus. They were originally supposed to open in 2009, and just over the years they just could not finish the project. In 2009 they capped the building, and they capped the building and just have never opened it. But they're finally going to open. They're doing a soft opening at the end of December, and I think a grand opening a month or two later. But we are finally getting another casino. Let me see what's going on. Yeah, same. Jay, I will have to say, I was saying, I mean, my tolerance has gone down, but I was surprised I got to about late 40s before I finally started slowing down a little bit. So, but it's always good to know when to say when. What's up with the new dome in Las Vegas? If you're referring to the Sphere, that is behind the Venetian. It's the one where you see, they have the video screen on the outside. That is behind the Venetian. It is owned by the Venetian. It's a partnership between them and the folks that run Madison Square Garden. And it's supposed to be just pretty much a music venue. It's large enough, from what I gather, they could hold sporting events, but they said they were never going to do that when the concept originally started. I know Dana White in the last couple of days has says he wants to hold a UFC event there, because I hear it's insane. The inside, you've probably seen some videos of the YouTube concert, and the outside's nuts. I know a hidden spot that's about a block behind it, away from the Strip and then behind it, in a parking garage. You just sit on the second floor. It's pretty cool. I gotta say that. It's not my $2 billion, but it's $2 billion well spent. Yeah. Now, see, Brian, you said you didn't know what to think about the Sphere. I was like that at first too, because I'm kind of like, well, all right, they're not going to hold sporting events. They're kind of limited on what they can hold. It's behind the Venetian. It's not on the Strip. I mean, you can see it depending on where you are at the Strip, but if you're walking along the Strip, you can't because of the buildings. And so it's not a tourist attraction in the sense of like the volcanoes were in front of the Mirage or the fountains at Bellagio. And I'm like, all right, well, if I can't really see it from the Strip, and the thing is, it's behind the Venetian. There's not a casino there, or it's generally not open to the public. So again, it's not like the Bellagio fountains where you kind of stand in front of it, watch a show, and like, hey, let's go in and play craps or have a beer or whatever. $2 million, that seems like a lot of money. But, I hear it's really cool, and, if you get a UFC in there and some other stuff, who knows? Not my money, anyway. Do I like living in Vegas? I loved living in Vegas up until COVID, and it hasn't been the same. though, I used to tell people, and I was kind of weird for working on the strip. I used to tell people that I would get off work and just hang out on the strip. Most people, if you worked in the casinos, you just got out of there as fast as possible. I loved the strip. I used to joke that I would love to walk down the middle of Las Vegas Boulevard and just lay on the ground and just let it roll over me. But unfortunately, the town has changed. It's still fun in the sense, and it's still great to live in a town that is 24 hours. And if I wanted to go get a steak and a cocktail at 3 in the morning, that's still cool. But the town's gotten big, and the strip is just not the same. A couple friends live in Vegas. They're excited about the Raiders transfer. I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, COVID ruined everything. You are not going to get an argument here. I was the happiest bartender in Las Vegas, Nevada, until March 13th, 2020, when I got laid off. And that, if I would have known then what was going to happen, I might have just said, "See you guys, we're done." What is the most expensive drink I've ever had? I worked in a real high-end casino on the strip, and I used to bartend in the high limit room, so I had access to stuff. I once drank a shot of Hardy's Perfection. It is a very high-end cognac that we used to sell at the time for $1,500 a shot. So that's, that's a little crazy. Prices are a little inflated here, but I bet now it's more than that. Hardy's Perfection. Hardy's is a lesser-known cognac brand in the sense for the general public. People obviously know Remy Martin, Cavassier, Hennessy, of course. But Hardy's is another one of those old French families that have made cognacs forever and ever. And Perfection is a blend of cognac. Some of the cognacs date back pre-World War I. Yes, $1,500 a shot. No, you say that's a lot, but there's levels to this game in Vegas. The most expensive drink I ever sold, I'll tell you this story. We had a Macallan Scotch, a 1969 Macallan. Now, it was actually from Duncan Taylor, which is a company that buys rare barrels from places like Macallan, Glenlivet, what have you. They'll hold on to them for an extra length of time. They'll put them in a great decanter or whatever. Well, we had a Duncan Taylor bottle. It was a 69 Macallan, 48 years in a sherry barrel, beautiful bottle, stuff like that. $7,000 a shot, 98 grand if you wanted the bottle. I had a guy come up to the bar, big player, and funny enough, he came up to the bar. He was Coors Light guy forever and ever. I mean, that's what we drank. But the gentleman at the bar had seen the bottle, asked me about it or whatever, and so I love telling the story to people because it just fascinated them and really hooked them into the whole Vegas thing or whatever. Anyway, the gentleman at the bar starts telling this high roller, he doesn't know he's a high roller, "Hey, you see that? That's crazy, 7,000. And the high roller, Platt, too. And he drinks Coors Light, and I'm like, you don't drink Scotch, right? Just do it. And I'm like, well, I got to call you casino host because you can't just hand out free $7,000 shots. Those have to get signed off for. So I called his host, whoever, and the guy's eyes, the tourist that kind of came in, his eyes were this way, "Really? You're right to do it? Don't worry about it." And he ended up buying, little addition to the story, the gentleman that was talking about the shot, his daughter, it was her 21st birthday, this, that, and the other, so the high roller bought her 2 bottles of Cristal, so I think his tab was $16,000 for that. Like I said, there's levels to that, and I tried to talk the casino I was at the time. There was a casino in town that supposedly had a $10,000 cocktail, and I was trying to get them to match that, and I couldn't quite get them to do it. So, you ever had a bomb pop drink? Actually, yes, I have, and I actually made a variation of that drink for a cocktail competition years ago for Bacardi, so I know exactly what you mentioned. Must have been a nice tip. It was good. We did all right that day. Let's say we had a little fun after work. And I'll leave it at that. Was not my biggest. What? It wasn't my biggest tip because I gave some to someone else and everything. Everything. So back to Vegas. One other thing, real quick, is that Formula One race I'm talking about. It's coming November 18th. Don't even try to book anything around that time. It's such a zoo. One of the things is they're redoing the road on Las Vegas Boulevard. They're going to run the race on that road. Roads out here suck anyway, and they're trying to do that construction. We have too much traffic, and of course they block Las Vegas Boulevard. So the traffic has been a nightmare around here. Also, too, the room rates are insane. The newest casino on the strip is called Resort World. And I have a player's card just because you get free parking or whatever. But they sent me a deal about their packages for the race. And this a few weeks ago, supposedly they dropped the prices. Yeah. Yeah, Mockley sees it. They went way down, but they sent me a deal about their various packages at Resort World. And the first one was, if you wanted to watch the races just in their ballroom and have food and beverage, you're not at the race, nothing like that, it was $1,500. If you wanted, they had a package 3 nights, 3 nights hotel, food and beverage, the base food and beverage package, and general admission, $20,000. If you wanted 4 nights VIP food and beverage and VIP seats, it was $40,000. That's what they sent their players. Ugh. No, thanks. It's nuts. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, part of me kind of misses being. Actually, I would kind of like to be working back in my old high limit room during that event because I've always heard that Formula One money was like next level money. So, like I said, I worked at a high limit room in one of the big casinos on the strip, and I've seen some big money. Like I said, I'm telling the story. But years ago, I went to the Atlantis in the Bahamas, that real nice resort down there, and I remember talking to some bartenders and people there, and they have a marina out there for all the yachts, and the yachts were insane. And I got talking to the bartenders who were like, "Oh yeah, it's next level here," because they get a lot of the Chinese and Russian oligarchs that don't want to come to the U.S. and deal with that mess as far as customs stuff like that, moving money, so they'll go to the Bahamas. And there was, like I said, a ton of money. But the people I've talked about was like, oh, well, you think this is something? Go to Monte Carlo, go to Malta, or wherever. And that's where they have those Formula One races. And it's next level stuff. A lot of the big poker players I used to know would go over there for some of the big poker tours, Monte Carlo and stuff. And they're like, Fiji's $12. You know, and I thought we were nuts charging $8 for Fiji at my casino. Have I ever been to medieval times? I think once when I think Bush Sr. was president, or it was after the Reagan administration, but it's been a long time. What's my favorite drink? You know what? It kind of depends. I kind of go, in and out. I'll get in ruts. Sometimes randomly on social media I'll post, if I go to like a generic sports bar, I for some reason will just drink a gallon of just Michelob Ultra, Coors Light, Miller Lite. Just sometimes I just want a cheap domestic. And then next time I'm drinking whiskey or something else, and that reminds me, I'm about to break into my main drink for the live feed. There, just want to start off with a little toast. Let's see what else we got going on. Macau's another one that I've talked to some poker players, and from what I gather, Macau's unique in the sense that here in Vegas, you walk in the casino, a big casino may have 50, 100 table games, something like that, and then like 2,000-3,000 slot machines. In Macau, it's like 400 or 500 table games and a couple hundred slot machines. Totally different. Those folks play table games, not a lot of slots, not a lot of blackjack. It's baccarat, pai gow poker, what have you. Actually, baccarat is probably the biggest game in town, even here in Vegas. You'll hear stories about blackjack players win or lose $1 million. I've seen it. Uh, but the baccarat room that's kind of hidden in the back, that's next level. At the casino I worked at, every weekend somebody would win or lose $10 million in baccarat. It's insane to see. I remember Chinese New Year's one year. Uh, they had to add additional baccarat tables because of the high rollers, and they brought them into my room, and table minimums, the lowest was 75,000 a hand. Just next level stuff. All right, what else we got going here? Gallon. Shark attack drink for my girlfriend. Rum, grenadine, curacao, and a gummy with a. You know what? That sounds like fun. I actually like that. All right, guys. I'm going to break out my main drink for the live stream. And whoever suggested earlier the Madeira, actually drinking a tawny port tonight. I don't, really talk much about wine on the channel or, really get into it. And I thought, you know what, I'll move for something different tonight. I've always kind of liked ports, a little sweeter than like a sherry or arbor. Before, if you never tried port's what's called a fortified wine. Basically, it's regular wine with additional wine spirits or brandy added to it. There's two main types. Madeira is a variation of them, but the two main types are sherry and port. Sherries tend to be a little drier. They ferment the wine out completely, then add the brandy. Ports, during the fermentation process, they add the brandy, it'll stop fermentation, and there's a lot more additional sugars left over. Platt, do you like Remy Martin or no? I'm going to be 100% honest. Cognacs aren't necessarily my favorite, and to me, there's better brandies than cognacs. Cognacs is a subdivision of brandy. If you are into things like Remy Martin, Cavassier, Hennessy, and like XOs and really nicer versions, try something called Germain Robin. Germain Robin is a California brandy that, because it's in California, or it can't be called cognac, but the gentleman that runs the company, his family used to work for the old cognac families, the Hennessy's and Remy Martins, of the world back in the day, and he basically took all that, brought it to California, and did it with California grapes. What a lot of people don't know is the predominant grape in cognac, in the wine used to make cognac, is called Uni Blanc. It is a very acidic grape and doesn't produce a good wine, but if you run it through the still and then age that in French oak barrels, limousine oak barrels, you get something pretty decent. He takes superior California wine grapes, your Cabs, Merlot, stuff like that, and makes his base spirit from that. Man, it's pretty good stuff. Their XO, or no, it's Germain Robin Perfection. To me, it's better than Louis XIII. I've had Louis XIII before, and I like to joke with people, I make better stuff in my base. See what else we got. Cognac's easier down than vodka. Oh yeah, I mean, vodka, drinking vodka straight or neat is kind of a pointless endeavor. That's why it's so utilized in cocktails, because it's just a plain neutral base, and so if you're the mixologist, you can go so many directions with it, and that's why, it's used in so many cocktails. Hello, what's my favorite spirit? I'm a whiskey guy. To be honest, I'm a whiskey guy. I love. I'm probably more of a bourbon than Scotch guy. I used to like Scotch. I don't drink as much now. I've kind of got more bourbon. There's something about, to me, bourbon has a little more, kind of heft and oomph. They get more out of, 5 years out of a barrel than like a Scotch. Most people don't drink much Scotch younger than 10 years. For bourbon, if you're drinking a 10-year-old bourbon, you're paying for it. Trust me. So yeah, I'm more of a bourbon kind of guy. So anyway, that's the latest up for the strip. We do get the Super Bowl this year. I used to tell people all the time my initial plan was I was going to work through the Super Bowl. Originally, it's supposed to be 2025, so 2024, and I used to tell people I wanted to work till we got Super Bowl in Vegas, make a crap ton of money, and just kind of ride off. Like I said, that did not happen. Do I have a preferred value spirit? Evan Williams. I think that's just a tremendous buy for the dollar. It's really good. Like I said, the bottle and bond for the dollar, it's really good. Like on the cheaper stuff, like Seagram 7, I've drank enough to float a battleship. It's with 7 and 7s, and when I would go play poker or stuff like that, hit the casinos, that was my weapon of choice. But as far as something I could drink neat, or in a mixer, or in a cocktail, Evan Williams is a great buy. Do the glasses you drink out of really matter? Not only if, that's the only time it really matters, if you're drinking a spirit neat or wine, and you want to, these kind of glasses really kind of hold in the smell, anything that you want to kind of sniff, appreciate before you drink, you want something kind of like this. Certain beer glasses work with beers because, now beer's a little different than wine and spirits because depending on the shape of the glass, it will affect the way CO2 gets dissipated in that beer. That will alter the taste. Something I may have talked about before on the channel, but a great experiment to try at home. Take a generic beer. I'll just say Budweiser, a generic Budweiser. Take and have 3 different cups. Pour one where you have no head at all, no bubbles release. Set down. Pour one where you pour aggressive and it just foams up, and then pour one regular. You will get 3 different tastes. It's not a huge difference, but you'll notice a difference. And that's because you're releasing that CO2 and that affects the flavor. Some beer glasses will alter the way that gets done. So it's probably more important in beer glasses than I would say for other drinks. Colt 45 versus Corona. That is a great question. I'm going to say for most evenings it would be a Corona just because it goes down so easy. It's a little less alcohol. It's just not going to quite hit you like it does the next morning, but give me a good malt liquor every once in a while. About a year or so ago, I did a few videos on malt liquors for my Platt Beer of the Week, and I remember trying them, and it had been the first time in 15, 20 years I've had some of those malt liquors. I'm like, oh, that's a lot better than I remember. Like Mickey's surprised me. I was like, whoa, that's actually pretty good drinking beer. And Colt 45 wasn't that bad. So, have you ever tried E&J XO? No, but E&J is a solid. When I was in college, E&J was my weapon of choice. There was a liquor store near where I went to college that had a shopping cart full of bottles that got dinged. They weren't broke, they weren't leaking, but they got dinged, or the label got scratched or something. They had to discount it. And E&J, for some reason, was always on that. And I'm showing my age a little bit. You could buy a bottle of E&J back there. I'd give them for $4 a pop, a $7.50. As a college student, that was tough to beat. I'm just going to tell you. 8-ball, oh yeah. When I went to college, there was a convenience store. I'll never forget this. I was going out of business. I had to clear the merchandise. They were selling Old English for 58 cents a quart. Me and the boys had some fun. I'll just leave it at that. EDC. One of these days I might have to go. I hear it's interesting, even though the traffic to and from Old Harbor is just absolutely bonkers. But I hear it's one of those things that you kind of got to see to believe. It is huge, though, in the clubs. I remember talking to guys that work the clubs, and they're like, you just don't get how that, the whole week in Harbor. And I'm fascinated by it because it travels around, and people come from all over, and they kind of follow because EDC goes around. I think they've been in Miami, New York, this, that, and the other. It's interesting for sure. Mickey's is a mighty fine malt liquor. No one will argue with that for sure. Oh, that is nice. It's sweet for sure. Now, like this is a tawny port. There's two, like I said, two types of port: ruby and tawny. Ruby ruby ports tend to be a little younger, a little more red in color. Tawnies get longer aging and more exposed to wood, so it's a little darker in color, a little more complex flavor. Um, Ruby ports tend to be just simple, sweet, grape juice almost, alcoholic grape juice. Jack and Coke with a lime, I've seen that. I don't get it. To each your own. I once had, Jay, you're reminding me of a story. I once had a woman come up to a bar I was working at, and she's like, do you have Merlot? And I'm like, well, I got this Merlot there. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll take Merlot. But can you put it in a soda glass? No, whatever. And can you top it off with Diet Coke? And I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, I know, but I like it. I want it half and half Merlot, half Diet Coke, and a little ice in there. I thought it was the craziest thing I ever heard of. On my lunch break, I see one of the other bartenders from the other bar, and I'm like, you won't believe what somebody just asked me. And I tell him the whole story. He goes, oh, that's how my sister drinks it. And apparently that's a thing in the Northeast or whatever. I'd never heard of it. But like I said, I've seen some crazy stuff there in the bar. The appeal of Ciroc. Well, a couple interesting things on Ciroc. Now, of course, that's Diddy's brand, and one of the things in the selling point of Ciroc was that it was the first vodka distilled from grapes, and it's also French. Oh, this is French. It's got to be cool. It told a great story. The reality is the French government, to help the wine industry because it's so huge there, kind of the way the U.S. government supplements the corn industry to grow corn for ethanol and to basically turn corn into ethanol. The French do that with their wine or their grape harvest. And instead of having an excessive harvest that push down wine prices, they'll take excess grape, basically juice, ferment it and then distill it and turn it into bulk ethanol or whatever. Well, most of your vodkas on the shelf are bulk ethanol. They're just, a lot of them will purchase bulk ethanol, strip it down, cut it down to 80 proof, voila. That's right. They're buying excess, distilled spirit that's on the market, and they probably get a pretty good rate on that. So Denny's making some money, is what I'm saying. Yeah, wine and Coke. I could tell a million. Craziest bartender story. Those may go in a book someday, but I'll give you a good one. I was working the hotel, this hotel casino I worked at. They had a front lobby bar open 24 hours, and I was working graveyard shift. It was absolutely dead, but about 3 in the morning, see this guy walk up to the front lobby. He'd had, a drink in hand. You could tell he's half cocked, shirt untucked, and he goes to the front desk. And they're about 50, 75 feet away, something like that. So I can't hear the conversation, but you can hear they're talking. And I can tell that this gentleman, is wanting something, but the girl at the front desk is just no. Whatever the answer is, it's no for him, and he's getting upset. Well, he decided he'd had enough. And it's kind of a standard, countertop front desk. She's back there and she's got a computer. And he just turns around, bellies up to the back, drops his pants, and takes a shit right there in the hotel lobby. And I'm watching this, and it's like 3 and 4 in the morning. I'm like, what's going on there? And I see him messing with his belt. I'm like, did he take his pants? Oh my God. Just took a crap right there. I was like, well, that's a new one to me. Grape juice, all right, I'm glad you asked this question, Jay. Grape juice and yeast does not produce methanol, right? Another question I get all the time, a lot of concern, is about methanol. Methanol, in a tiny, 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 tiny fraction, will always get produced by fermentation. It gets produced in larger amounts, anything fermented from grain. Generally, grape or fruit, like a brandy type, does not produce hardly any, it's a fraction, but it does get produced. Where methanol is a danger. It's not a danger. It's going to be in every fermented product you have in a very, very tiny, minute level that you won't get noticed. Where the methanol things come in, what people think it's dangerous, you hear people, you got methanol poisoning, you went blind. That is from distilled spirits. And what happens when you do a run of distillation, if you're gonna make a bourbon or rum, whatever, more bourbon, any kind of whiskey, because of getting the grain, the very start of the run that comes off, and it comes off at a lower temperature, you kind of work your way up temperature-wise in the distillation process. At the start, you're going to get a little bit of pure methanol, pretty much pure methanol, concentrated. If you were doing, for an example, just equivalency, like a 5-gallon batch, let's say you're one of the moonshiners in the backwoods and you had a little home still that you played around with. A 5-gallon batch, you might get a shot glass worth of that and you just dump it out. If you've seen the TV show Moonshiners, you'll see when they do a run, they'll take the first little bit and they'll throw it in their fire. Of course, they have an open fire and it makes, a big scene. That's where methanol comes in. But the rest of the time, it's not an issue. A lot of the stories and a lot of the stuff that gets told about this methanol and going blind all kind of go back to Prohibition days. A couple of different things are going on back at Prohibition. First and foremost, it was all legal, all bootleggers, Al Capone, stuff like that. A lot of times they would just throw wood alcohol, rubbing alcohol, into whatever hooch they were making. Bathtub gin was basically like wood alcohol, water, and juniper berries. They might throw some sugar in to sweeten up. That's where people were getting hurt. Or if you were, again, one of those old school moonshiners back in the day and you're doing 100 or 200 gallon still and you're doing a big run, the first gallon, you would see these moonshiners with their gallon jugs, on TV. That first gallon jug most likely was methanol. And the poor sap that got that, he got screwed. So that's where that's kind of coming from. But as far as if you're making beer, wine at home, whatever should you be concerned, nah, it's when you get into distillation that you really get in trouble. Do you make as much as a female bartender? One thing I found out when I moved to town is it really kind of depends on which bar you work at. Oddly enough, there are female bartenders. There are actually now a ton of female bartenders. But again, a lot of places, it's still the man bartending and the women cocktailing, and the cocktail waitresses make next level stuff. I'm not going to give too many firm examples or this, that, and the other, because, I'm not, I've made promises to the girls and, stuff like that. But those stories you hear about cocktail waitresses getting mortgages paid off or $10,000 tips, or those are all true. Trust me, I knew a cocktail waitress that had her mortgage paid off. Knew another one that got $40,000, the one that got $15,000. I knew some cocktail girls. This was before the recession in '08. Cocktail girls in this town used to have a nice side hustle. Players would give them Louis Vuitton and Versace and Gucci purses. Well, how many of those do you need? Also, there's a nice secondary market. Girls would supplement their income with these Gucci bags they'd get. There are female bartenders. They are now hired in the clubs, the day clubs, the party pool, stuff like that. If you go to a generic video poker bar in a generic casino, you're not going to see them much. Still crusty old farts like me out there. But yeah, there's a ton. In a similar type bar, like, I knew one that worked the sportsbook bar. You're going to make the same. It's really not. And a lot of places, the uniforms and stuff, the casino I worked at, the uniforms, you could be Jessica Alba in her prime or whatever, and you weren't going to look sexy. So, gee, I appreciate that. I like to think I am somewhat useful. But yeah, I actually worked with a lady who was I think she was the first female bar back in Las Vegas, or the first female union bartender, and she told me some stories about the grief she used to get, and in Vegas, if you worked a union property, especially back in the day, you had to do 2, 3, 4, or 5 years as an apprentice before you ever got shot at a bartender. And she had to work her way up, and a lot of the male bartenders would not tip her out as a barback because they were angry, you know, the female doing the job. So it has changed now. Now, it's still more males than females, because I knew a couple young ladies that started off as bartending when they came in. Then they found out what the girls were making, and they were attractive young ladies. It's just, you know, and same, there are a few male cocktail waitresses in this town. Caesar's Properties do that in a couple of their locations. Me and the guys kind of joked, you know, I bet if that was an option, we'd probably do all right. Because part of the deal is the male cocktail waitresses probably do more on volume instead of per drink like the ladies. So we always joked about, hey, well, you know, why don't we cocktail? You know. Do I pay for recommendations? No. If I could figure out the YouTube algorithm, trust me, I would have, because I'd be a rich man by now. It is mysterious. I wish I could show you guys the back end of my YouTube and like how just views just go up and down and random videos take off on me. I'm fascinated by that. Like just why one video that's kind of the same thing gets 75 views and the next one gets, you know, 4,000 or something. I don't know how that works. Are casinos or Caesars? I used to be a Caesars player. Before they got bought a while back, they merged with a company called El Dorado. That's they're big up in Reno, and that's where the company's headquartered. But they do a lot of these racinos that you see in the East Coast and stuff like that. Well, anyway, they merged with Caesars. Not quite the same. I'll just leave it at that. But I gambled with Caesars for a long time, and one of the things I liked about Caesars at the time is you didn't have to be a huge gambler to really get some nice perks. Like, one of the big events for Caesars Entertainment every year is up in Lake Tahoe. They do that celebrity golf tournament where all the athletes, you know, Steph Curry plays, all that stuff. Well, between my play at Caesars and some connections, I'll leave it at that, I got to go to that golf tournament 2 or 3 times. It's an absolute buzz. If you ever get a chance to go to Lake Tahoe, go. It's beautiful. Just the scenery. You want to talk about a place to go just have a cocktail and sit outside. Lake Tahoe is tough to beat. And then you add the celebrity kind of factor there. And the thing is, you run into those guys because Tahoe is a small town. Fun time, to be sure. And Caesars hosts that. They have 2 casinos there. They have Harvey's and Harris. And I used to go to that, and it's a buzz. But Caesars, well, you know, like all these companies, kind of cut back on the comps. I just need to start reading that yourself. We've all been there. We've all been there. Trust me, I get it. How much do I drink on an average night? It kind of depends. I will say this in a bit of honesty. When I was younger, if I was going to have one, it's going to be 10. I've gotten to the age now where I can have a beer or 2 before bed and just, you know, kind of crash. It was funny. I was talking to guests today. So it's a Friday, and this little bartending story. I was telling some guests today that I could always tell when it's Friday, when the guests walked in. If you were bartending on a Friday afternoon or evening, you could just see people, the week's over, I'm officially done, let's go. And you could just see it be people by there just in a kind of an attack mode. And I used to be the king of Friday nights, trust me. So, what else was I had? Hey, real quick. Even though we haven't talked too much tonight, we kind of got lost in Vegas stories. I do want to talk about home brewing. A couple people expressed they want to come on and watch this, you know, and ask some technical home brewing questions. Uh, Let me suggest a few books for you if you're getting into the home brewing thing. And home brewing translates into a lot of other hobbies, you know, whether you're cider, mead maker, wine maker, or whatever. Even if you get into home distillation, which just say is technically illegal, but you know, I don't want to go over that. But if you get into that end, if you're gonna make whiskey, you're basically making a beer. So I want to suggest some books for you real quick. Extreme Brewing by Sam Calagione. This is his book. Sam is the founder of Dogfish Head and will soon become the chairman or head of the combined companies of Sam Adams and Dogfish Head. Anyway, great book. And one thing I like about Sam, he does some crazy brews, but the way he explains it in the book, and he keeps it kind of simple, and he gives you the recipe for 60-minute IPA. So if you like the 60-minute, anyway, great little book there. You know, if you get a chance, check it out. Next is this is probably the quintessential book, if I can say, if you only get one book to ever, you know, read on homebrewing. How to Brew by John Palmer is a quintessential book on homebrewing. I will warn you, it gets a little technical. Like, you have to be kind of a dork like me to really get into it, but it covers everything, and it does go from simple, all extract beers, whatever, to the most advanced stuff. But it goes into things like how to solder and build your own 3-vessel beer system, the science behind it, how to use a refractometer, stuff like that. But great book there. If you get real dorky, check out Yeast. This book is literally just about yeast, which makes this whole thing happen. Every alcohol you have is from yeast. So if you get into it, you want to become friends with the yeast. And lastly, Radical Brewing. This is if you want to get real experimental. There's some fun recipes in there. Also, there's some old ancient brews that a lot of people don't know about, that kind of get lost. One is Kvike. I've made some Kvike, or not Kvike, Kvass. Sorry, Kvass. That is basically a Eastern European brew where you take kind of some toasted bread, some raisins, stuff like that, throw in a little yeast, and it's a kind of alco pop thing. It's kind of a hybrid beer soda pop. Generally sold like anywhere from 2 to 4%. Like, it's kind of a substitute for soft drinks in Eastern Europe so far. But anyway, they got some great recipes like that there. So I wanted to plug that real quick. What else we got going on in the chat? Yeah, the wheat thing, I don't, smoking and drinking, yeah, it's, so out here in Las Vegas, we'll keep with the topic. Weed is legal out in Vegas. You can't consume, or you're not supposed to openly consume in the casinos. Basically, don't pull out a joint and go, but that doesn't, let's be honest, it doesn't stop anybody. If you have a vape pen, if you do edibles or whatever, you're going to be fine, what have you. But I do caution people. That's one of the things that, there's a lot of apprehension when it passed here working on the strip, because a lot of people thought everybody's going to be whacked out of their mind. Oh my God, they're going to be out of control. And that never materialized. But what did materialize is the person comes in, clear it, hey, how's it going, blah, blah, blah. Hey, can I get a Chardonnay or a beer? Yeah, sure, blah, blah. And, they have that, and then, oh, can I have a second one? All right. And then you just see them melt right on the bar stool, and you're like, what the hell? And then you get to and you realize they took an edible and they totally forgot about it. They're this, that, and the other, and they just turned to puddle. They're not getting in a fight. They're not causing trouble, but you can just hear their brain turn to glue or something. So, be careful, kid. That's all. As your bartender, be careful, kid. Be careful. Oh, KJ, how scary is it? Oh my God, that is too terrible. Don't get How was Vegas in the early 90s? I did not, the first time I came out to Vegas was 96, 97. I'll tell you, you know what it was? It was right after, it was not too long after Tupac got shot. Funny story. We were out here for the nightclub and bar show. We went to a party or something like that. And anyway, we were leaving, and we met some guys from Canada. We're hanging out. We're like, hey, let's split a cab. We're going to go to another bar or something like that. And we get in the cab. I remember this guy telling him, hey, cabbie, I'll give you an extra $20 if you'll drive me by where Tupac got shot so we can see it. It was a different town back then, let me tell you. Man, you want to talk about drinking cheap and some dirty, dinky places on the strip. There used to be. When I moved to town in 2006, and they'd already closed some old places. But I remember when I moved to town, I was broke. I was absolutely broke. But I remember going to the strip with $20 and having a blast. There's several spots, and I talk about this. If you ever come out to Vegas, check out my video, 5 Tips for Drinking Cheap in Vegas. You can still have a decent time. It's just harder. But there used to be some places on the strip. There used to be a casino near Circus called Westward Ho that closed down in 06, 07, like that. 99-cent Coronas, 99-cent Heinekens, 99-cent margaritas, $1.99 32-ounce pina coladas. Yes, please. The old Frontier used to do a deal. I'm glad I didn't live out here in the time because I'd been dead. But the old Frontier used to have Gillies, the famous honky tonk. They had one in there, and on Wednesday nights it was $10 cover. But for $15 extra is all you can drink draft beer. Now Wednesday night was the night they did ladies mud wrestling. So for $25, all the draft beer you want and ladies mud wrestling. Value. How do I afford living in Las Vegas? Vegas, when I moved out, was still fairly reasonable. I moved from Dallas, and in 06, it was still fairly reasonable, and it's not horrible now compared to. I actually was looking the other day, in a long story, but I was looking in Montana, of all places, just looking at places. Rent's higher in Bozeman, Montana than it is in Las Vegas, so it's kind of weird. Gas was about 25 cents a gallon more than what I had in Dallas. Rent was a little more, but I made a lot more bartending. So it's gotten more expensive, especially in the last few years, all the Californians moving out here. But you can make it. It's not like LA or New York where it's just impossible. If you're not making $150 a year at least, you can't survive. Here, it's not quite that bad. Where am I from originally? I spent most of my time in Texas. I moved around a lot as a kid, but I moved out here from Dallas, and I went to school at the University of North Texas. Go Mean Green. $3.15. Jay, where are you at? Holy cow. Was the strip cleaner on homeless thing? Yes. Yes. Now, what was different back then, and up until, I want to say, probably the recession, in like 08, 09, that time period, the strip was cleaner as far as homeless. What you had a ton of on the strip back then was how do I want to put this? The ladies of the evening would do advertising. So I think you guys will appreciate this. Prostitution is legal in Nevada, except in 2 counties. Washoe, where Reno is, and Clark County, where Las Vegas is. The brothels that you see on TV and hear about, those are in other counties. The closest brothels to Las Vegas are about 45 minutes west in a city called Pahrump that's in Nye County. However, I think we're all adults here. We realize some stuff goes down in Vegas. Back in the day, the gag was they would have all these advertisements for live nude models, or a masseur that would come give you a massage in your room, stuff like that. And you would have these guys up and down the strip just handing out cards. They'd pop them and whatever. Again, it's been 15 plus years before those guys were really on the strip. But back in the day, you would have those guys. You would have like, newspaper machines, but they were free, where you just open up, in a lot of major metropolitan area, you'd have the free newspaper that would have like the swinger ads or whatever. Well, imagine that with just girls. Girls. Again, live nude modeling. If you want to rent a model for an hour, it was whatever, and that was all over the street. And a lot of the cards and advertisement, they would just have like, pixelate the nipples, whatever. And it was basically nudity. And that just covered the strip. If you walked up and down the sidewalk, so people would grab it, look at it, throw it down, or whatever. And they were all over the strip. So you didn't have the homeless, but you had that. Now what's happened, oddly enough, was there was a big court case out here because the casinos wanted to kind of clean that up. And it became a First Amendment issue. And what ended up happening was now these street performers, people dressed up as Transformers or Beanie Babies or whatever, kind of panhandle for money and charge you $5 for a picture. They somehow got into the court case, and they took over. They ran those guys out. And now all up and down, the strip, you got people dressed like Smurfs and stuff like that, basically panhandling for money. So that's actually a bigger battle than the homeless per se. Downtown homeless is a little different issue. Downtown, a lot of homeless there. How did I end up in Vegas from Dallas? So, like I said, I came out to Vegas before I moved out here. I've been bartending. My first bartending shift was 30 years ago. I'd kind of had other jobs in the hospitality industry, but always had at least a side gig as a bartender or something like that. I used to come out to the nightclub and bar show. Now it's the bar and restaurant show that John Taffer from Bar Rescue, he runs the show. But it used to be just straight, pretty much liquor bars show. And I would come out to that, and I would talk to the bartenders out here in Vegas, get to chit-chat. I'm like, wait a minute, you make how much? What insurance? What are you, a pension? Because in Texas, if you worked at, your local TGI Fridays, Bennigan's, Applebee's, Chili's, whatever, minimum wage for tipped employees in Texas is $2.15 an hour. If you're a bartender, you made the big money at $3.50 an hour. And I remember I was bartending at a chain restaurant, I'll leave nameless, and I got a raise to $5 an hour. This is 2005, 2006. It wasn't like 1940. I remember getting a raise to $5 an hour, and my boss was like, we might have to shut down because of how much we pay you. You also probably need to, cook in the back. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I found out what these guys in Vegas are making. Like, I gotta get out there. Give us your best border town from Juarez, Tijuana. You know what? Never done the border thing too much. Growing up in Texas, and went to college in the early '90s. In Texas, across the border is a city called Matamoros, and that's that's the Texas version of Tijuana in a certain extent. While I was in college, they had a big murder of a couple of college kids. Like there was a cult down there, like something you would see from an old horror movie in the 50s and 60s, but like some blood cult. Anyway, they found 4 or 5 college kids, cut them up, and it kind of killed the border town thing, because that's where was it, Cunha or where? One of those cities they referred to as Boys Town, because that was another one of those things where you go find you a lady and become a man kind of thing. But I'd never done the border town. I've had some fun in Cabo. Actually, the picture, if you saw a social media post today about it, that picture of me, I had a cigar and a drink or whatever, that was in Cabo San Lucas. And that was a Cuban cigar, too. What's the cheapest rent there? Not ghetto. You know what? Probably $1,000 a month for a functional 1-bedroom in a decent place is probably about. I got a couple friends that pay that. I got a little unique situation. Yeah, Texas border towns. That I remember that used to be a deal, and every year for spring break, when I was in college, we'd always plan to go to Padre and then over, and then somehow we just ended up going to Galveston because it was a shorter trip, a little bit cheaper. It's still fun. You're on the beach, you're getting drunk, what have you. Yeah, Jay, we're probably a couple $100 a month more out here. Again, in LA, that's probably 3,000 a month. So we're better in LA, yeah, we got a little. My first apartment out here, and it was a decent sized one bedroom. I think it was 700 a month, if I remember right. And then ever since then, I've always had kind of roommates or whatever, because I'm a simple kind of guy. You know, just give me a bed and let me do my voodoo in the kitchen, you know, and I can live with that. Time is 9 o'clock. All right, about an hour in. Still having a little fun. We'll go as long as you guys want, and as long as I got booze. Either you guys get there, or I get there. One of the two. I pretty much, like I said, kind of covered. Give you a little Vegas update, recommended some bucks. I do encourage people check out some of the. I don't know how many of my videos you've seen or whatever. Check out some other stuff. I got an entire series on like beer and wine and spirits. Like if you want to learn, hey, what's the difference between like mezcal and tequila or cognac and brandy or stuff like that, or you want to learn a little bit more about wine. I'd actually done years ago the prep course for the sommelier. I just never got my sommelier, and the bars I worked at, I never got to work in the fancy restaurants, and that will get my blood pressure up. That was part of the reason why I left the casinos, because in the last 10 years or so, the food and beverage departments in these casinos, especially the high-end casinos, all they worry about is the celebrity chefs, and that we are going to do these are the priorities. Like they would take high-end liquor out of my high-limit room to take to the restaurant. And they would literally take Mr. Big's bottle of water, Pappy Van Winkle 23. I remember having a battle over that. I'm in the high-limit room of a casino. I've literally seen people want to lose $1 million. And the casino's like, oh no, we need this bottle for this little restaurant over here. I'm like, are you high? Are you nuts? That restaurant won't this month make $1 million. And this guy's, that was another reason why I left. We were going to make apple pie moonshine. So I've been in the distillation into the business. The first few times you go through that process, mistakes will be made, but I knew that, so I never probably drank a jug of methanol, if you ask. Probably the most dangerous thing I've done in the alcohol making at home kind of thing or whatever was learning about what are called bottle bombs. Basically, when you bottle beer, if you don't know what you're doing as far as carbonation stuff, your bottles can explode because of the excess pressure. If you add too much sugar, too much yeast, if there's still an active fermentation going on when you put it in the bottle and reactivate it even more. I've had some bottles blow at 2 or 3 in the morning and scare the crap out of me. That's actually probably been the most dangerous thing I've done. Moonshine in the backwoods of Carolina. I'd love some. Funny story about moonshine. You guys love this. The first time I ever had actual real moonshine. Funny story. I had a roommate in college whose family was from Arkansas. Good old hillbillies up in the hill. This one New Year's, me and my roommate were going to go back up to the college, go to some parties or whatever. But I stopped by his parents' place because we also went to high school together or whatever. I stopped by the parents' place, say hi or whatever. And his dad's like, I walk in the door, he just hands me a jar of clear liquid. He goes, moonshine. I'm like, really? Really? What? Oh my! And I was like, yes. And he goes, and my roommate like, yeah, I told Dad, next time he's in Arkansas, I'll bring some back. Da, da, da. And he's like, boys, y'all come with me. All right. We go out in the backyard. He had one of those old school lawnmowers where you hand crank, just start the engine. Undoes the gas cap, pours a little of that moonshine and puts it back on, starts her back up, and like my eyes are like, we destroyed that jar of moonshine that night. Yeah, so if you're doing my simplest, that first video of mine, the simplest way to make booze, the simplest way to make booze, and you just keep it, make sure that cap's loose enough. So in fermentation, you'll produce CO2, which produces pressure. If you do it during the main fermentation like that, you're going to get an explosion. What happens, like if you're making a beer or even a wine, stuff like that, is you'll go through the main fermentation, you'll ferment practically all the sugars. It's not 100% efficient, but most of them. And then when you go to bottle, let's say this is a bottle of champagne instead of port. You would add the wine that you produce, it's like 12% or whatever. Then you would add additional sugar in there, and maybe you can sprinkle in the little yeast. Then you would put the cap on, and in champagnes, because they're so high pressure, that's why they have the cork and they have the special wire cage because of that pressure. And that's also why you have that, what's called a punt, with that kind of beveled bottom. That gives the bottle more surface area to kind of evenly distribute the pressure. And so that's what they do, but you definitely want to be careful with that for sure. The wine video is 2014. So, God, oh my God. Yeah, I did that video fall of 2014 because I think on the YouTube thing it says I started this channel August of 2014, but it was probably October, November before I put out a video. Holy crap, that's been 9 years. Well, I'll just have to say, it's the booze. I'm well preserved. Moonshine is why I like NASCAR. God bless them boys. So, kind of going back, I did have a federal liquor license at one time, and my product's going to be apple pie moonshine. So, back in like 2008, 9, 10, or hanging out with other union bartenders, they found out a homebrew. And so they're like, well, hey, make us something. I'd bring some wine over or this. Or I love making homemade liqueurs too. Well, one of the guys that we regularly hung out with was like, have you ever heard of something called apple pie moonshine? No, well, I'll do the research. Still the research. I can make that. And I made some, and they're like, man, that's great. Hey, they have a little more cinnamon. Next week, a little more cinnamon. Like, oh my God, you got to sell this stuff. And it became kind of a running joke. And the next thing you know, like, what, let me look that up. And the rest, they say, is history. Unfortunately, that did not work out. We never officially got anything on the shelf. Starting a booze business is pretty hard and very expensive. That is something that I realized and everything. But I was technically a moonshiner at one time. Platt, favorite movie of all time? Shawshank Redemption. If you remember the movie, Andy Dufresne talked about Zihuatanejo, that was going to be his escape. Vegas was my Zihuatanejo. When I was bartending in Dallas and stuff, man, just kind of grinding out. Like I said, made below actual minimum wage, and always had two jobs. Like the guys that bartend in some of the smaller states that had the minimum wage at $2.15 an hour, what have you. Man, a lot of those guys worked two jobs, and it's just it wore me out. I'm kind of like, I'm going to go to Vegas and get one job, but Vegas is always my Zihuatanejo, and that's why that movie always has Dog Day Afternoon. You know what is fascinating? I saw that movie a while back, and I saw a note about it, and I didn't know a lot about the gentleman. So in the movie, one of Pacino's sidekicks that was also he played Fredo in the Godfather movies. Whoever that gentleman was, he only made 4 movies his entire career. 2 Godfathers, Dog Day Afternoon, and Deer Hunter. That's a pretty good resume. I don't know what that young man's name it was or whatever. He died young or whatever, but wow. 4 movies. That's all he ever did. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. For sure. Um, like I said, I've seen that once or twice. I don't. Is that Scorsese? I don't even remember who made it. Never liked The Godfather. You know what? I'd heard about it when I was younger, and I never got it then. But the older I've got, I kind of appreciate it now. Just the older I've got, I find the movie, you know, interesting. The story and the arc, and also kind of the time. I love kind of the. So in connection, Vegas obviously is a very mob town. Long story. I actually had, and I won't name names, obviously, but I had a gentleman one time with Mob Connection. He used to be a mob attorney that flipped on the mob. We pulled up his arrest. You can find his mugshot online. He was legit, but he flipped on the mob. He was an accountant. And I'll never forget one of the first times I waited on him. He always dressed to the nines, always very elegant. But one time I noticed he seemed puffy, and I realized, and I just saw he had a bulletproof vest underneath his shirt, and I'm like, oh, jeez, you're making me a little nervous. A little nervous here. Let's see, Goodfellas, Casino was in Vegas. Yeah, so Casino, cool story, and this is what one of the fun parts about Vegas. So the movie Casino is based off of real people. The gentleman that Robert De Niro played in the movie was called Ace. He was based off a gentleman named Lefty Rosenthal. In the movie, the casino was called the Tangiers, but it was based off the old Stardust Casino. Golly. The Joe Pesci character, I was going with Joe Pesci's character was based on a gentleman named Tony Spilotro, the Ant. Spilotro was the local enforcer in town. And in the movie, you see a scene where, like, him and Sharon Stone get in a fight in a restaurant, and they're in that restaurant a couple times. That restaurant's still around. That's a real restaurant. It's called the Golden Steer. And Spilotro owned that for years and years and years. And you can go there today. Classic, great old school restaurant. Just, if you want a steakhouse, you want the full steakhouse experience, the Golden Steer is just absurd. And up until about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they had a gentleman that bartended there for 50 years. One of his claim to fame was he dated one of the old Bond girls. I gave him a $20 tip for that. But he ended up leaving the harbor, but just a classic piece of Vegas. If you ever get a chance, check out the Golden Steer. Yes, he did have, so the gentleman, Lefty Rosenthal, did have a TV show. That was all real. In the movie, he, Lefty, or Ace, the character Ace, has confrontations with a generic gaming commission person. I think it's played by Dick Smothers or one of the Smother brothers. That person, really, the real person that's based off of was former Congressman Harry Reid. Harry Reid was on the gaming commission before he came from Congress, and he actually did push back on mob guys. And that's kind of how he made his claim to fame and everything was that. But he did, Lefty Rosenthal did have a TV show. I think Sinatra was on there. I think they got Tony Bennett, stuff like that, and it was based at the Stardust. And that, again, was totally unheard of at the time because the casinos, we just do our business, get the people's lights, and we just kind of go on. But that was actually, are the Fertitos good casino owners? You know what? The stations are kind of the local casinos. They don't have anything on the strip. The very first casino I ever went to and stayed at was Palace Station, their original casino. It was called Bingo Station back in the day. If you've seen my Mini Bottle Mania video, there's an old Jim Beam bottle with the Bingo Station label on there. They run a good casino in the sense that it's far better on the strip. They're not charging for parking. When I first moved to town, they just gave buffets away left and right. It was so great. I could play a few hours of poker. I used to be a poker guy and get comped all the time, get comp buffets. And it was great because I was broke. I'd play poker, then the next day, just murder the buffet, and the rest of the day I might snack, and I didn't need to go, go to the grocery store and stuff. Favorite song ever? That's tough. That's Come As You Are, Nirvana. Not bad. I was a grunge guy in college. I was more of a Soundgarden fan. I saw Soundgarden one time, and Chris Cornell. That voice was just insane. And one of my great regrets in life, I made a connection with somebody in Seattle, and I'll leave it at that. But I had a chance to go. Cornell, I think their big museum up there is called the Gen Pop Museum, or whatever the big music museum up there in Seattle. And they were dedicating a statue to Chris Cornell. And this gentleman had connections, with the band. I'll leave it at that. And he invited me up to go to that dedication ceremony. I couldn't make it, and that's one of my big regrets. Do I have any pits? No, but I know someone that does. My roommate does, and everything. But yeah, Cornell, whew, that voice, holy cow. Got a lot of comps at Harris. Yeah, see, Harris Caesars, like I said before, Eldorado bought them. They were cool with comps too, not like Stations. Stations was cool on like buffets and stuff like that. Have you ever gone to the Wynn Buffet? Yes, absolutely sublime. Best buffet. So I take it back. The two quote-unquote best buffets in town, in my opinion, Wynn is the best for quality. I mean, their buffet is top end, some really high-end stuff. Caesars remodeled theirs a few years ago, and it's called Bacchanal. It has the most variety of stuff. Like their dessert aisle, there's like 40 different style of cookies. Like you want snickerdoodle or something, rum raisin cookies or whatever. But it's not quite as high end. Like when I was there one time, I'd gotten a comp or something or whatever, and I was there, and they had like pigeon legs or whatever. It was just sublime. Harris had. Do I still have the bird? The bird's still around, but he, oddly enough, does not interrupt me. He used to love to interrupt me when I'd shoot videos, like in the kitchen, making beer and stuff like that. He used to love to interrupt me, but for some reason he gets it now, and I don't get it. But that bird's still around. So Harris had something outside of Harris, and it's called the Link now, but it used to be the old Imperial Palace, and there's an area in between called Carnival Court. Actually, part of the reason why I moved out here. Carnival Court used to be one of the fun spots on the strip. I don't know if it is or not, but they had a bar, and then they'd have a band and a dance floor. And the bartenders, that was the first spot to have the flair bartenders. They would juggle and stuff. And they used to have these pair of brothers that worked there called I think it was the Delpesh brothers. But the one brother, Christian, won the World Flair competition like 4 or 5 years in a row. And I think his brother won it once or twice, and just would put on a show and everything, and real cool. One of the years, 03, 04, 05, something like that, we were out for the nightclub bar show, me and a couple of buddies that bartended in Texas. And I remember talking to those guys, and they were real cool. They gave us all kinds of free drinks, because Caesars kind of let them, kind of gave them more leeway, allowed them to hand out drinks, stuff like that. We got talking to those guys, and they were telling us about, and again, this is 03, 04, talking about, hey, I got a dollar, X dollar house here, this, that, and the other, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta move out. That was kind of the seed. I'm like, oh, I gotta get out there. And I remember applying forever and ever to try to be their bar back, to get a job in that specific bar. And I was a bartender just as a bar back, and I'd bartended for 10 plus years, before I even came out here. And I couldn't even get an interview, so it was just nuts. Rodrigo Delpesh. Yeah. But anyway, and I think Caesars ended up moving, if I remember right, Caesars ended up building a lounge for them at Caesars Palace. Gave them their own lounge because they'd gotten, real popular and stuff. And it's closed down, everything's rotated out. But I remember talking to those guys. I'm like, holy cow! And that's what I wanted to do when I first come to. Well, I had two dreams when I came to town. I was going to get a real big bartending job on the strip, make silly money, and then I was going to win the World Series of poker. Well, at least I got a job on the strip. But yeah, no, you know. Now, oddly enough, you're asking about the station casinos earlier. I had people before I moved out and everything tell me, hey, you actually want to get a job in the stations, kind of local casinos, because you know everybody in this town bartends and works, and that's where they go hang out, and they take real good care of you. And more importantly, they don't act like tourists or knuckleheads or whatever. And to a certain extent, that's true. My bucket list is to drink with you. Maybe someday, Jake. Shit, I try to get out. I do it. So I'm glad you brought that up, Jake. I want to try to do more of this, more live stream stuff like that. Try to get more interactive with you guys. I've had, like I said, I've had this channel forever, and just kind of spit out videos. But I want to get a little more interactive because I appreciate it. It stuns me. I tell people all the time. It stuns me that I have as many subscribers as I do. Again, I can't really show it, but on the back end, you check out my demographics. Literally, my videos have been viewed in every country on the planet, which just boggles my mind. Like Micronesia and Rwanda and, you know, Indonesia. Who the fuck is watching me? For God's sakes, I joke. I used to tell people at work that, you know, there's women in Mongolia that want to run their fingers through my hair, and it just, you know, cracks people up. But no, it's an absolute buzz, you know, that I got as much traction with this thing as I have, and I want to. And again, part of the reason why I'm doing this live stream thing, I want to start doing more interactive stuff. The goal, the plan, maybe, hopefully, is to do these maybe once a month. You know, this, that, and the other. Do some more interactive stuff. So that's definitely the plan. Maybe somewhere down the line, maybe someday, you know, a Vegas meetup or something like that. Yes, the balloon trick is a great way to go. Hindsight being 2020, and of course that video, my simplest way to make booze video, that was my very first video. And it was shot on an old iPhone, you know, low data, you know, this, that, and the other. If I had to go back and do that video again, it would be, I would show the balloon trick. I should, but I was trying to make everything as simple as possible. You know, what have you. Have I seen a UFO? No, but I have spent some time around Area 51, and it is very, very interesting to say the least. No UFO, I haven't seen a UFO, but I've seen a lot of freaks, so I'll just leave it at that. For sure. The UFO thing, I will say this, though. The UFO thing's huge out here. There's actually, so Area 51 is probably 45 minutes or so north of town. It's so, actually, there's Area 51, but there's other areas, and there's also the military base. We have Nellis Air Force Base, and then there's the Nevada Test Range. Actually, when I moved out here, and I don't know if the stat's still true, but at one time, 85% of the surface area of Nevada was federal government land. You know, and there's Las Vegas and Reno and some other spots, but everything else is federal government land. And so there's just a lot of nothing out there to see in Las Vegas. But the Area 51, there's one of the main highways goes by it, and there's just out in the middle of nowhere, you see this thing called alien beef jerky. And it's just a beef jerky spot near the gate, Area 51. You're like, who the hell comes out here? But I stopped by, and it's a massive place. And all the kind of beef jerky you want. I think they even have alligator jerky, for God's sake. But, yeah, no, who to. Vegas meetup, yeah, maybe someday. Yeah, I don't even know how to facilitate that, but definitely for, you know, for sure, you know, more interaction. I promise you guys a little more interaction with you guys. And definitely want your guys' feedback on, if there's something you want to see on the channel, or, type of video or beer or something. I'll do my best. Part of the problem is I used to always request, hey, tell me a beer. And it just seems like I couldn't get the beer in this market, Vegas is kind of weird on, so for those of you who may or may not know how the booze business works, if you start a brewery, let's say you start a brewery in Kansas, you have to go through distribution individually in each state and get approved. It's a lot of process. So even like, let's say you're the hot brewery in Kansas and your stuff's sold in Nebraska and Oklahoma, doesn't mean I get it out here in Vegas. Now Vegas is great for accessing really high-end stuff. You want, really high-end stuff, you want to access a Duncan Taylor Macallan 1969, we can get that for you. But if you ask me for, Big City Brewing's Amber Ale that's sold in Missouri, or so that's a little bit. Have you ever been to St. Louis? I want to say Jimmy Carter was president. I remember when I was like 4 or 5 going to the Arch. And that was mid-70s, so it's been a while. Hennessy, Amsterdam, or Crown? Where are you having? You can only have one. Oh, Crown. Oh, Crown Royal. Oh, God. If you had met me in 1996 or whatever, I used to drink Crown like it was my job. The smallest people ever. The gentleman from Golden State, God, what was his name? I was still working on the strip at the time, and I ran into that young man, and he was like, what? I ran into LeBron. I ran into LeBron one time at Warwick. The shoulders, I was stunned how broad he was. But I ran into that gentleman from Golden State, and you're like, and we do have a lot of shorter people in this town. I'll just leave it at that. The Golden State Warriors. So we have the NBA Summer League, and you would see a lot of those guys. And a lot of the people have houses out here. LeBron's got a place out here. At one time when his kid Bronny, was in high school, there was rumor he was going to play for a school out here. There's a school called Finley Prep that's one of those, prep schools that specializes in basketball or whatever. And it's one of the bigger schools. And there was rumors for a while that Bronny was going to play here, but I guess one of the schools in L.A. But LeBron has a place out here, for sure. And a lot of the players do. And part of the reason is a lot of people have places out here, celebrities, politicians, this, that, and the other, because there's no state income tax. So they'll base themselves, they may live most of the year in New York, LA, but they base out of here for the no state income tax. Pawn Stars, I have been actually, when I first moved, my first casino job was downtown. I used to have to drive by the Pawn Stars to get there. So much smaller than you think. On the TV show, it looks kind of like a big place, but you go and you're like, oh my God, it's tiny. But it's always packed, and they ended up buying, when I first moved to town, it was just a little pawn shop, and it might have had 7 or 8 parking spots to get there, but they ended up, because the show became consistent, they bought their neighbors out, and they ended up they tore that building down. They got like a barbecue joint, which I heard is pretty good, a bar, stuff like that. They expanded the parking lot. They got like a door gang, and people get in line and stuff. But it's not near as big as you think. That being said, they do have some really cool stuff. Their collection of like Super Bowl rings and championship rings and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's just, well, it's Vegas and that's where these guys lose money and sell stuff kind of deal. But it's stunning, the rings they have. Also, those guys know how to make money. They had a display in there, and this was years ago. They had a display of $2 bills. And Chumley would sign, they would sign the bills. These were $2 bills they were selling for $10. Or they had their own printed silver coin, which I think at the time spot price for silver was like $18, $19 for a 1 ounce round. Well, they're selling those for 35, $40. People are buying them left and right. I'm like, oh my God, they're just printing money. My next, I wanted to enter prep school. Yeah. We have actually, oddly enough, we have a couple of prep schools out here that are huge. Finley's the big basketball prep, and then we have Bishop Gorman, which is a big football factory. That's our football factory out here. But yeah, those like I said, pawn shop. It's really small. I'm trying to think. I've never ran into Chumley. Yeah, I haven't ran into Chumley in person. I want to say I saw Rick one time. We, you know, what have you. Would love to meet the old man. He seemed crotchety, but in a fun kind of way. Everything, but if you do come to town, I'm not going to say it's not worth stopping by, because again, some of the stuff in there is just really cool. And they, now, because it's become so popular, again, they've got people, you know, to sell them stuff. You know, like I said, like some of those rings and stuff like that. I think they had like a Hendrix guitar, you know, they got cars, stuff like that. Have you ever been here, St. Louis? Like I said, I went when I was a little kid, but I have not been back as an adult. I still haven't gotten over the 2011 World Series. I'm a lifelong Texas Ranger fan, and I still have not gotten over that loss to St. Louis. Damn it, I can still see Nelly Cruz missing that fly ball in the outfield. I need another drink. Are there still stuff like Star Trek at the Las Vegas Hilton? The Las Vegas Hilton is now something called Westgate. I think that Star Trek exhibit's been gone for a while. The old Westgate is looking rough. Illinois, sorry. I think I drove through as a kid. We lived in Minnesota for a little bit. I don't remember. I got a ton of buddies. There's a ton of people out here from Chicago, and we talked about for years going to a Cub game or this, that, and the other, and it has never worked out for some reason. I need to go, just get drunk in a different zip code kind of thing. The Star Trek thing, I think they eliminated that a few years back, but I remember when it came out. So the old Las Vegas Hilton was originally known as the International. At the time it was built, it was the largest hotel in the world. Kurt Kagorian, who ended up starting MGM Resorts, basically what we know of as MGM Resorts International, he opened the International. And I had a buddy who does a little gambling, who got to go, the top floor they used to have for Elvis back when Elvis played there. And it's a 10,000 square foot suite, and helicopter pads on top so he could come in and out. And a buddy of mine checked it out one time and was like, you've got to see this thing. But 10,000 square feet. Holy cow. I wonder if that's where him and Ann Margaret hooked up. Oh my God. Boy, But yeah, that hotel, it's seen better days. There's not a lot of. Did online gambling hurt? No. It kind of, online gambling in a roundabout ways kind of saved people's asses out here, especially the casinos, because especially like Caesars, they have casinos all over the country, so they're doing the sportsbook thing in several places. No, the casinos love the sportsbook and the open sports betting, because a lot of it goes on online now and through your phone, which means we don't have employees we have to hire, this, that, and the other. The casino I used to work at was one of the last casinos in Las Vegas, but when I started there, you could go just sit in the sports book. You didn't even they didn't hand out tickets. If you were just sitting in the sports book, they would just bring you drinks. Then after a while, they started the ticket thing. Well, you got a bet or whatever. And now, they trying to get them to hand out comps like, throwing around manhole covers. They don't do it as much, but everybody's betting online. Now, see, the sports betting thing, though, the online thing does kind of work because it allows you to, quote unquote, shop for odds. Like, let's say Buffalo's playing Miami, 7-point spread. You think, you would like 7.5 so you can bet the other way or this, that, and the other. You could shop around online, where if you were on the Strip, you'd have to walk from Caesars over to Bellagio, over to what's now called the Horseshoe with the old Bally's, to find different lines. And that's why they were always strict about phones in the sportsbook back in the day, because they didn't want people shopping the lines. That's why they stopped cell phones in the sportsbook, or at least tried to up until a few years ago, was they didn't want people shopping the lines or actually taking, bookies taking bets. Now that old thing's over with the, pretty much legalization of sports betting everywhere else. No, I did not see a Mike Tyson fight, but I have waited on Mike before, and met him before. Holy cow. Hey, what a cool guy. What a cool human. But it's weird. You have to meet him in person to understand it, because him and I are about the same height. He's not a massive, he's not a tall or massive guy, but when you see him in person, and there's something about his aura, you're like, that man can just kill you in any moment. That's his option. He could just snap and kill. Like, maybe it was Rogan or somebody said, like, it's around being a tiger. He had the tiger, like, oh, they'll let you pet him and it'd be nice, but it's his option just to destroy everybody. You could just, it's one thing you can tell the guy, he's muscle, it's a different kind, like, he's not ripped, but you just know he's just thick and dense, and you could just tell, I could just mash you, but nice guy, holy cow. Have you ever met Dana, Rogan, or Buffer? Buffer, I want to say I ran into the World Series poker one time. We didn't really talk, however. I've never ran into Dana. The gambling stories I heard are prolific. But I've never ran Dana. So, I worked on the Strip for one of the big names. UFC was owned by the Fertittas, who owned the station. So guys like Dana, Rogan, whatever, they would generally hang out in those casinos. So I kind of missed them. And everything, but I've met a lot of the fighters before I ran into him. Randy Couture went on cover. What a nice guy! Holy cow! And what killed me about the UFC guys, and it was Randy Couture and Vanderlei Silva that stunned me when I saw them. Those guys fought at 205, light heavyweight, 205 pounds. I'm 260 something now, or. These guys are so much bigger. It's stunning how big and thick they are. And you're like, wait a minute, you fought at 205? I know they cut weight. I get that. Why, they walk around 225? And you just have this just dense, and you're just like, holy shit, that's a big dude. And you're telling me he gets down to 205. It's stunning. The Dana White stories, like I said, I did not see a lot of that action. One of the rumors is out here that he's supposedly been quote unquote cut off at casinos because he wins too much. Great time to explain some of that stuff. So cutting off in casinos, whatever, generally refers to card counting. Card counting is not illegal. What ends up happening is if they think you're card counting, they'll just do two things. One of the things is they'll flat bet you, which means whatever your first bid is, let's say you're playing 500 hand, you can never raise up. That's one of the big things of card counting. If you can count cards, you know when you're in the advantage. That's when you up your wager. But that's also one of the signs for the casino that, hey, you might be card counting. So if they're not 100% sure, they'll just flat bet you. But if they're 100% sure and you really hit them for a big number or whatever, they'll just ask you, Mr. Such, we appreciate you gambling. You are done playing blackjack, but if you'd like to play slots or horse, bet on the horses, feel free. You're done playing blackjack. And if you push it too much, like let's say you hit Caesars, 4 or 5 Caesars property, if you really push it, then you get on what's called the blacklist. There's a black book that State Gaming has that kind of keeps track of the true scoundrels. And if you get in that, don't ever think about going to the casino again. Have I ever been to a fight? I haven't been to a UFC fight. I've been to, years ago, I went to a Roy Jones fight at Mandalay Bay. Roy Jones and this town, when a big fight's happening, and especially back in the day, boxing, but it is something different. I remember when I first got to town and started working on the strip, De La Hoya Mayweather fight. Cinco de Mayo weekend, holy cow. The money the town was shoving. Mayweather McGregor was next level stuff. My bar, they had to bring in extra tables. They were all reserve games, or I think the minimum table limit that weekend was 1,000 a hand. Blackjack. In my room. It was just insane. So, Jay, you asked about card counting. What is card counting? Basically, it's for blackjack, and you keep track of the cards that are coming out of a deck. A standard, what's called a shoe, or the cards dealt in blackjack here in Vegas is 6 decks. 6 decks of cards, so 6 52-card decks. A card counter will keep a running count of the cards. I don't know exactly how it goes, but cards from like 6 and under are considered either minuses or plus, and it's the opposite the other way, and then you keep track of aces. When you get to a certain plus minus, when you get plus whatever, supposedly the game is now in your advantage, and that's when you would increase your bet. Now this is a very base, of this, but that's how card counting works. Basically, if you're playing blackjack, and depending on the rules, that's another part of it, like, do they pay 3 to 2 for blackjack, or 6 to 5? Can you split after a double, or double after a split? Stuff like that. So it's very technically nuanced. But if you find the right game as far as that goes, if you do the card counting, you go from being a 5% underdog to like a 2% favorite. Like you can't, like, even the best card counters can't tell you the next card off the deck kind of thing, or they can just tell you it's a higher probability these cards are coming off. And that's all it is. But if you have mathematically, if you have an advantage, you should push it, bet more, bet all you can all the time as long as you have that advantage, and that's what card counting is. So how do they know if you're card counting? One of the things is they'll notice you change your bet size. Also, too, these dealers, they deal so many hands over so many years, and especially in the high limit rooms, they know stuff. They can tell. We can tell. I almost got to the point, even just kind of randomly watching people from 20 feet away, you're like, it might be card counting. How are fight walkouts? Like, so, let me tell you that story. So, like I said, I saw Roy Jones Jr. fight. He fought and took Harvard the first time. I think it was 03 or whatever. I did some radio work at the time. Long story, but HBO paid for us to come out for the fight. Got to do some interviews. I interviewed George Foreman and Rick James. I gotta find that picture. I need to post it sometime. It's a very cloudy picture. Me and Rick. I got to meet Rick James. Anyway, so we're there for the fight, and we get to our seats, and right behind me was Floyd Mayweather's father, who was watching the fight. And we're like, holy cow! We got to talking to him, and he talked us through the whole fight. Hey, watch this. He's scoring this, that, and the other. And I remember him telling us he had his cell phone, and I remember him going, "Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me!" And Tarver, if you were watching it live, Tarver was winning the fight the whole time. And he told us around the 9th, 10th round, like, you won't believe it. Buddy called me and says on HBO, the pay-per-view, they were saying that Jones is winning, that they had Jones winning, and he was telling us this. But it was oh my God, it was so cool to have somebody like that, talk you through the fight. It was really cool. A fight live is next level, like I said, especially a big fight. That night we ran into Terrell Davis, the producer of this radio show was on, got to sit by Snoop Dogg. Yeah, it was that kind of night for sure. Would they know if you card count in a small town casino? Actually, that's where from what I gather, a lot of the card counters went to years ago. They shifted from the big casinos out here, kind of knew our, but when they started having all the Native American casinos and the riverboats, the reality is there's only so many quality dealers, pit bosses in the world, and they've all gone to either Vegas or at the time, Jersey, Atlantic City. So the riverboats in Missouri and Kansas and Illinois and stuff like that, they weren't getting the cream of the crop, and that's why a lot of card counters went out there, because that pit boss is not going to catch on as fast. So that's part of the deal. But as far as its legality, it's not illegal. It's not, because you're not marking the cards, you're not doing anything like that. You just have better mental acuity. But the casinos then have the option to decline your play. So you're not going to jail. And unlike the movie Casino, well, the scene in Casino where he gets the hammer, that was illegal because, he had another man or whatever. But if it was just straight card counting, he would never got the hammer. He would just say, "You're done, get out." And back then, he probably said, "You know what happens if you come back in?" Again, we're here. It's a little different animal these days for sure. Well, guys, let's go about another 8 minutes. Let's go to 10 o'clock, and then I'll wrap this thing up. But, man, I had a good time. I appreciate you guys showing up. Like I said, I want to do more of these, maybe once a month, something like that. I just want to start doing some different stuff with the channel. The weekly beer video, some of the other stuff is fun, but I want to do a little more interaction. I also kind of let my personality out a little bit more. All right, Jay, that's a good question on the high limit games and rooms and stuff like that. So technically, if you were to talk to the Gaming Control Board of the state of Nevada, everything's open all the time to the public, blah, 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 blah. One of the things working in the high limit room I got pushed back on, I used to give a little speech when you could tell a random tourist who didn't know where they were, come into my room and they're like, "Hey, can I get 4 Budweisers and Fireball shots?" And da. And our prices were a lot higher. At the time, we're talking about 2010. A Budweiser was $12 back then. We're out on the casino floor was $6. A Jack and Coke was $20 back then, stuff like that. We had a lot higher prices, so I'd give them that spiel up front, kind of warn them, but I couldn't tell them they couldn't hang around. And where this really came into is sometimes a celebrity would be in, and people would just go nuts, and they would come in and want to hang out, and those celebrities didn't want that, but I can't throw them out, and so that was kind of the balance. And the casinos in the state gaming for a long time, no, because that was kind of a touristy thing to do. Like, hey, let's watch Mr. Big play $1,000 in hand blackjack or whatever. The reality kind of came, some of these people, especially celebrities, we don't need the public bothering us, so they started doing some high limit rooms, they started allowing some things. Now the poker game is an interesting deal, because technically poker, let's say a standard 1-2 no limit game in poker, there's a board, everybody's supposed to see it, anybody can play. As long as you're 21, have the cash, you can play the game. Obviously bigger games, bigger cash, but so I'll give you a good example. The world famous Bellagio Hotel Resort and Casino had something called Bobby's Room, or has something called Bobby's Room, and the great Doyle Brunson, before he passed away, here's to you, Doyle, would have what they called the big game. It was a $100,000 minimum buy-in, $4,000, $8,000 limit game. They would play different variations of Hold'em, Omaha, Rast, blah, blah, blah. Supposedly that list was always open to the public. That if you had a random $100,000 in your pocket, you could walk in. The sister property, Aria, had what was called Ivy's Room, after Phil Ivey. It was supposed to be the same thing, a big game. Well, somehow that lineup didn't get reported enough and stuff like that, and I'm not, if you had a spare $50,000 or want to sit down with your favorite poker player, conceptually you should be able to sit down. I'm not going to say it always happens. The casinos get to play in a gray area. Does Platt gamble? Not as much as I used to. I used to be pretty good. I have 2 caches at the World Series of Poker. You can actually go on WSOP.com and look me up, or I have 2 caches. Like I said, when I moved town, I love poker, and I'm a slightly profitable, real low limit poker player. As far as cash games go, just man, God, I used to play all the time. I just never had a breakthrough. Like I said, I have those 2 caches of the World Series of Poker. One of them was something called the Colossus, which I don't know if they do anymore, but at the time, it was the world's largest poker tournament as far as number of entrants were. 18,000 something, and I came in 420. Go to WSOP.com, type in Platt Robertson, you can see it all. And the first prize was $1 million. And like I said, 18-something thousand people came in 420th, and I remember the hand of this day. I shoved all in with ace-6. The guy called me with ace-4, but he was suited, ran out of flush. I got knocked out, but I'm not gonna say I was gonna win that thing, but I would love to win that. Biggest slot machine win I ever heard of. I've got a picture on my phone from somebody I know in slots of a $1.5 million video poker hit. Now, we have something out here called Megabucks, a slot machine. And it's tied into other casinos, and their payouts sometimes hit anywhere between $10 and $20 million. Years ago, the state legislature out here in Nevada got with New Jersey, because we do technically have online poker, and we share it with New Jersey and Delaware, the player pool. And they at the time agreed that they were going to do a deal where they would share player pool for slot machines, try to get bigger progressive payouts. The Megabucks is about the biggest slot payout here in Vegas, and it will get, like I said, anywhere between 10 and 20 million. But they wanted to start getting up to like 70, 80 million or more, so people wouldn't go buy Powerball tickets. Nevada does not have Powerball. We don't have a lottery. And so everybody drives to the border. You know, this last week, well, we had like 1.7 billion, for God's sakes. On the California border is a little city called Primm. There's a couple of casinos, but right on the other side of the border is a little lotto store, and the lines are insane when they get big. 6, 7, like it's literally easier to drive all the way to like Baker or Barstow and buy your tickets, or drive all the way to Arizona, down to Bullhead City. But they're going to combine all these slot machines to get bigger payouts so people wouldn't drive that way, but they just, for whatever reason, never got done, which I don't, to me that would seem kind of simple. And the number of slot machines in town, how could you not get an $80 million, $100 million slot payout? But I don't know why they ever done it. But 1.5 million on video poker. The guy was playing $1,500 a hand. It was, I don't know if you gentlemen gamble or not, but it was, you play 3 hands video poker at a time, because 1 is not enough. Yeah, I'm still streaming. Golly, got BJ Mockley. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't know. I don't know if he said, we're having a good time shooting the shit. And like I said we'd keep going pretty much till I ran out of booze or you guys got bored. So I'm still streaming. Friday night, what else we got to do? But anyway, that was the deal on the slot jackpots, that they were going to build something huge, and it never happened. And to me, it would make way too much sense, because in the casinos and stuff, you would have pools where somebody who had a relative in Arizona, this and the other, would buy tickets or whatever. Funny story, I'll tell you. Remember 4 or 5 years ago when they had the first $1 billion Powerball jackpot? A young lady I worked with at the casino, her sister was dating one of the bigger poker players. And she was going out to LA to see mom or something like that. He gave her 10 grand cash, her and her sister that I worked with, gave him 10 grand cash. Hey, give me 10 grand worth of lotto tickets. Well, these young ladies weren't real hip to the gaming thing, and they went to their generic AM PM in LA and just dropped 10 grand. Hey, give me 10 grand in quick picks. Well, of course, they print out 5 at a time, and people online were just pissed. Drinking, you know what? I'll have another drink in the infinity bottle. Why not? But anyway, she bought 10 grand in lottery tickets at one time at the convenience store. She said everybody was so mad at me. And I think she told me that 10 grand turned into like 11,000. Like he ended up making a little bit of profit, but he didn't hit the big one. So you're bringing up the movie Vegas Vacation, just a random slot thing. It's not like it used to be, and where that really was in the movie, you would see slots kind of out in front of the casino. That was downtown. Downtown used to have casinos right on the walk there. So Fremont Street years ago used to be an actual road you could drive between Gold Nugget and Binion's, and about 30 something years ago they blocked the street off and made it just pedestrian. And they put slot machines out in front. The first time I ever went downtown, I this is a great story. First time I ever went downtown, I'm just down there, and that was back when you could still put quarters in. And there's still a few places in downtown that still have coin-operated machines. I think the California still has them. Maybe the Plaza, a couple other places. But anyway, back then, back late 90s, wherever, you could still walk by a slot machine, throw a quarter in, move on. And they had them up and down Fremont Street. You didn't see it on the Strip, but on Fremont Street. And I went to Binion's and played a nickel Keno machine and hit for like $250. And they paid me out in nickels. And I'm carrying I'm drunk as can be, carrying just buckets of nickels. And I remember somebody at the Horseshoe or at Nugget or something, hey, pal, why don't you cash it in? Just make you like, I can't, oh yeah, Reagan, you're fat. No, you got me there. I can't lie. No, he's right. I'm not going. The grape juice yeast thing. I'm trying to remember where So I've been home brewing since the late '90s. I had a boss give me a Mr. Beer home brewing kit, and that's you just have to give a random gift to somebody, give them start that Mr. Beer kit because it's simple to be. And I started that and just kind of went from there. I didn't really get into home brewing hard. Like I'd done it some, but I kind of just would buy refills. I never really learned the science. Mid to late '90s in Dallas, Texas, there was like one homebrew shop that I knew of in the Dallas area. And back then, if you wanted to get into homebrewing, they sold these 5-gallon kits with the big glass carboys, and it was like, whoa, that's a lot of work. And the internet back then was just full of porn. The old school dial-up internet was just for savages. God, I remember the original Yahoo and AOL chat rooms, the perverts and stuff like that. God. But anyway, there wasn't as much information. But when I moved out here and got working in casinos and really got hardcore into bartending, I met people in the business and I got to tour breweries and stuff. And that's kind of where that went. Grew mushrooms. I like where your head's at. Definitely like where your head's at. Actually, funny story, and you guys appreciate this. Jay, to officially answer your question on camera, the fact that I may want to run for governor of the state of Utah, I'll decline for now, but I think that answers your question. I'll decline to answer on camera, but I think that answers your question. So anyway, I got to meet Tito at Tito's Vodka. The casino I worked at, he came to several times, did different presentations. He's, Texas-based, I'm from Texas. We kind of hit it off, we had drinks. Tito had a cocktail competition back in 2011. I won, and part of the prize was I got to go down to Austin Single Limits Music Festival down in Austin. He had his own private, he has the, no, I didn't meet Tito's dog, damn it. Well, you know what, I'm minor one, I don't remember, now I think about it. But Tito has his own little Airstream motor coach or whatever, and he had it backstage at the Austin Stadium Limit Music Festival, and we hung out and drank. And actually, it was because of him that I started my spirit company. Because I got to meet him, and his story is unbelievable. He was telling me at one time, because he kind of bootstrapped the thing, financed it all on his own, and he was telling me at one time he had 18 different credit cards, and he ran up like $200,000 in credit card debt, and basically would get another credit card to pay off the credit card before, and it was just insane. But I don't know if you've checked the Forbes list, the guy's worth like $4 or $5 billion, so it kind of worked out for him. But I remember talking to him like, God dang it, well, that guy can do it, And I remember showing him some stuff, that I was doing at home for it. And he's like, man, that's cool. And we kind of hit it off. And I just remember thinking, God, I want to be that guy. And that's why I started, me and some friends started that company. And it didn't work out, but, Tito's vodka, as far as the vodka itself, I mean, it is what it is. But I'm not a huge vodka guy. And the reality with vodka is that it's supposed to be neutral. It's just supposed to be just alcohol. Like, there's not supposed to be flavor. Or what made Tito's unique was the corn. They went with the corn, and it does give kind of a sweetness in the finish. Also, too, his timing was perfect because in the early 2000s, everybody went gluten-free, so he hit a real home run on that. Now again, is it the best vodka? Is it better than Stoli's? Whatever. To me, vodka was always with something else. It was never the predominant flavor. So, who kind of really cared? And the thing I like though is Tito. The funny thing is Tito, and like you go to the nightclubs here in town or whatever, or you just it's not so much a nightclub, but like you go to the liquor store and there's Grey Goose. There's I told you Ciroc earlier. It's basically French government supplemented wine spirit. Grey Goose is a similar thing. I want to say French and EU. That's another French product, but the French government subsidizes it to turn it ethanol because we're going green and stuff like that. It's not that they made a superior product or reinvented the wheel. They just had the right balance of, well, they're from France, we can always charge more, and we get our product cheap. We get nice margins. We can put that back in the marketing, which is the spirit business, totally. Yeah, no, the credit card thing, the way he described it to me was just an absolute buzz. I don't know if I had contemplated that with my company, but I thought I don't want to get on the hook because he would tell you that it could have gone really bad and really quick, and I did not want to do that. And I also too I thought I could get some financing. I talked to some people who wanted to be investors and stuff, and it just didn't work out. The booze business is so tough. You need so much more money than you would think to get into it. And if Elon Musk is happening to watch this, if you have spare $10 million, I think I can get that done. But more than that, what's the best chaser? Ugh, boy, that's a good. I'm not sure. When I started bartending, not whiskey chasers. What were they called? Yeah, I don't know how to answer that really. Yeah, Sprite. You can't go wrong with Sprite. Yeah, lemon lime soda is tough to beat on that one. And you know what? It's probably best because with whiskeys and stuff, I've never been a big chaser guy anyway. Now, we had a big debate at the casino I used to work at the time. It's not a popular thing, but there's a term called a snit of beer. Back in the day, if you sold Bloody Marys or whatever, you'd have a little beer chaser for the Bloody Mary, and it'd be like 3 or 4 ounces of whatever. And I remember we had a deal like, well, how do we ring that up? Does it get comp? Blah, blah, blah. And it was a big deal. And I remember having to explain to my boss, who was the beverage manager, knew everything, what the fuck a snit was. Now it was, it was a beer chase for a Bloody Mary, but the same thing. And, ugh. I need another drink after remember that. Remember that memory. Smirnoff. Well, you know what? Smirnoff sells enough vodka on their own. Up until a few years ago, they were the best-selling spirit in the world. Apparently now there is a whiskey made in India called Soldiers, Admiral, something like that. It has something to do with military. That is the most sold spirit in the world, but I can't even find it here in the States, so but Smirnoff sold a ton of. Smirnoff is actually the one that gave you the Moscow Mule, for those of you that didn't know. 4 shots of monthly water. Well, hydration is salvation. Oh, no, no, no. I don't know where you're going in Las Vegas that doesn't have Red Bull, because we charge the shit out of that. So the casino I used to work at, if you wanted, let's say Tito's and Red Bull is a prime example. Tito's was, God, back then, 12, 13 bucks, something like that. Red Bull, $4. That was half the can. You just water topped off, and then that was it. If you want the whole can, it was $8. And I think now it's like 10 or 12 on most of the places on the strip. No, it doesn't work like soda, but just kind of cleanse the palate. And like I said, you can always be hydrated. Any crazy bar fights you witness? Not a lot out here in Vegas. So a lot of casinos will have behind bars what's called a panic switch. That's when somebody pulls a knife. In the 15 years I worked, I only had to hit it one time. And it wasn't that I was scared for myself, but this guy was so just smashed, and he was just cussing me out, told me I was the whitest person he ever met, which I'm not even sure where he was going with that. And oddly enough, there's some famous people in the room. I won't name names or whatever. They were politicians and stuff. But he just decided to walk by behind my bar, and I'm like, pal, don't. Your day's about to get real bad if you do that. He did, and I hit the button. Security was there like that. They got the guy, and he started smarting off. Finally, all right, you're off property. That's just kind of a generic thing. We just get him off property, whatever. Well, this knucklehead gets thrown off, basically just thrown out the front door. Hey, go away. 10 minutes later, walks back, goes to the different bar, gets in a fight there. They finally have to call the police. Well, the police and security had enough with him, because he'd acted the fool at my bar, even to security. Like, he had 5 security guards, and he acted like he was going to do something, kind of thing. The hotel security was done with him, but the Metro police, like, all right, we'll get rid of him, but don't press charges. No one wants to fill out paperwork. All right, sure. They put him in a cab. All right, you're off. You're back to your hotel harbor. He does the cab. He goes around the block, comes back again, goes to the valet area, starts punching people's windows, and they finally have to throw him in the clink. Oh, my God. Perrier's a chaser. I used to have a regular, a gentleman, a rather wealthy gentleman, great guy. He loved Johnny Walker Blue label. That was his weapon of choice, and he always chased it with Perrier. That was his, like, I would give him Johnny and a ball of Perrier every time, and he would throw me a $20 tip every time, and we were all happy. So yes, that's actually not a terrible chaser either. The plastic bong drinks, oh my God, those were classic. Unfortunately, they've gone up. When I used to work downtown, the old Golden Gate Casino, now it's been remodeled, or back in the day, they used to deal, if you bought one of those half yards or whatever, pina colada daiquiri or whatever, and one of the other casinos, you could take it there and get it refilled for $3. Pina colada daiquiri or whatever. And I remember a buddy of mine asked me, I was telling him about it the first time I'd seen that, I texted him like, hey, you won't believe the deal I got out here. And he was like, well, how many times will they let you refill? And I go, well, at least 3 that I know. All right, guys. Yeah, we probably need to start wrapping up. Golly, I've gone a little longer than I thought. Yes, I can do last call. Sorry, guys. I meant to wrap this up earlier, but I'm having a few drinks, having fun. We'll definitely try to do this maybe once a month, something like that. And I'll probably bring on some guys. I want to kind of bring on some other Vegas people, kind of talk Vegas stuff, but I definitely also want to, any alcohol-related questions, this, that, and the other, please let me know. Always leave something in the comments. You know what's funny about the Excalibur? That is an MGM property, and they have the same base drink prices as like the Bellagio or Aria. It's just absolutely nuts. But guys, had a good time. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to say salute to you, gentlemen. Thank you for showing up. Like I said, hopefully a month, maybe next month we'll do this again. I appreciate everybody showing up. And until next time, bottoms up.